Hello and welcome to Two Across, the podcast where normally two friends sitting on opposite sides of the Atlantic get together and catch up over a crossword. But for today, we have something a little special for our listeners.
We do indeed. For one day only, Two Across has become Three Across, because I'm sitting in a room in London with Henry Hitchings, a good friend of mine, who is an author of many books, particularly on the subject of language. He's also presented a documentary on the BBC about the history of the novel, published a PhD about Samuel Johnson. If anyone is going to help us get over the line of this week's crossword, it is my good friend Henry. No pressure at all, Henry.
None whatsoever. Thank you very much for having me, guys. It's a real pleasure to be able to join you. Immediately the question comes to mind, am I actually any good at crosswords? One answer to that is, well, we're going to find out. I'm backing myself, but I haven't actually been an active crossworder at any point in my life. So maybe a beginner's luck will strike.
That surprises me, Henry. I would have thought if anyone was a cryptic crossword aficionado, not that we do a cryptic crossword, but I would have thought you would be up on that.
There's something about working a lot with language, particularly in an academic sphere, where you reach saturation point, a bit of a busman's holiday to play a game of Scrabble or something like that.
I can imagine that being the case.
So today we're going to try a game of reverse Scrabble, obviously. We've already got the board laid out and all of the words are technically there if we can find them. And this has actually been our challenge of late because the last, I think, 2 or 3 episodes, is it, Theo? We've failed to complete the crossword.
I think we're on a 2 crossword losing stretch. So if we fail today, that is obviously the ignominy of 3. And crucially, it also means our scores go from being 10 all to 10-11 behind. So this is why we've brought a ringer in the form of Henry. Although, you know, now he tells us he's not a crossword specialist.
I'm confident.
Okay, you probably should be confident, Henry. Although you're not a crossword specialist, Henry, can you tell us anything about the origin of crosswords? Because I'm quite intrigued about where the whole kind of game actually originates.
I could tell you a few things. The crossword, as we know it, was developed by a man called Arthur Wynne, who was a Liverpudlian who emigrated to the United States as a teenager, and he worked as a journalist. He actually played the violin in an orchestra in Pittsburgh and was a journalist in Pittsburgh. And then he moved to New York and he worked for a New York newspaper. I'm struggling to remember the name of it. It wasn't the New York Times. It was the New York, it might be called the New York World or something like that. Anyway, he had seen word games of a crossword type elsewhere, but he was the first person, I think, to put one in a newspaper, which was, I think I'm right in saying, in 1913. He was short of something to fill a space, and he put this in, I think, really rather as a last resort, and it was hugely popular. It was in a supplement, I think on a Saturday, that newspaper published. The supplement was called Fun.
Nice.
If memory serves, and he put it there and it took off as a phenomenon. I think a lot of the conventions of how crosswords are now presented were not really in place at that time. He also called it a word cross, not a crossword, and someone suggested to him that crossword was a bit catchier. And later on, his secretary, I think it was, a lady called Petherbridge, I can't immediately remember her first name, really then took things forward and brought in a lot of the conventions, I think, about how the crossword has to sort of mirror itself and the black squares, because the original one that he had didn't have black squares. But the thing which is interesting to me, apart from the fact that it was a Liverpudlian emigre to the United States, is that crosswords were very controversial, which seems really quite weird, but there was a lot of pushback. They became really, I think, popular in the sort of 20s and 30s, and you would get these articles in the American press fulminating about the sort of depraved waste of time, all the human endeavour that was being squandered on this futile activity. It's quite a sort of lesson, you know. Here we are today complaining about the idiocy of being on TikTok the whole time or whatever it is. People used to talk about crosswords or word crosses in just that way.
I dread to think what they would have made of our podcast then.
A derivative waste of time.
Yeah, we are wholly dedicated to the procrastination of crosswording on Two Across. Well, I hope it was like Wordle, to draw a contemporary analogy, and I hope our friend Mr. Wynne got suitably compensated, although I suspect...
I'm not sure that he did, but I think he had quite a successful career in journalism, and this was something that was, seen as to his credit.
Thanks, Henry. Well, there you go. Today I think we raise a metaphorical glass to Arthur Wynne and his invention, or at least his coining of crosswording as a pursuit.
And that's interesting because in learning that, I always ask myself whether it was an English invention or an American invention. It strikes me as one of those things that both might claim without the actual information, but it's interesting to know that it was an Englishman working in America. So I'd say the debate would therefore rage on. Is it an American or a British invention?
I believe that Wynne had actually seen a game like a crossword, or puzzle like a crossword, in an Italian publication. But I think it might have been a one-off, and he thought, oh, that was interesting, and then he'd forgotten all about it. But I'm not too sure about that.
Well, not to bring everything back to our podcast, but the fact he is a transatlantic figure, I think is wholly fitting for the raison d'etre of Two Across. Arthur Wynne is very on brand with our transatlantic witterings, and hopefully would approve.
And with failing hands, he passed us the torch to carry on his legacy of transatlantic word games. So should we jump into this one and see how we get along? And I'm realizing that we've been very ungracious hosts because we completely put Henry on the spot as the savior of our floundering crossword fortunes. So there really is no pressure on this. If we fail, well, we're sticking to brand.
Yeah, so just to fill you in, Henry, what we always do is set a timer of 30 minutes to complete our crossword. So there is a little bit of jeopardy to it. And much as we always encourage a good meander based on a clue, we also need to just keep an eye on that, on the time.
Yeah, of course.
So, chaps, if you're both ready, I am...
Do you start with the first one? I mean, I noticed there's no 2 across and there's no 3 across. It starts with 5 across.
Before you start the timer, I think our name is ironic in the way when Homer Simpson and his friends Apu and Mo started a band called the B Sharps, we are an ironically named crossword because there never is a 2 across. We've concluded this now 20 episodes in, that the nature of a crossword is that it will never produce a 2 across because there's always a 1 and then several downs that will cross it, and by the time you get to the next number, it's much higher than 2.
Right, you see, that is my ignorance of the mechanics. I know a bit about the history, and I know a bit about the words that might go in the grid, but the actual doing of the crossword and the conventions thereof, that's all a bit alien to me. I'm learning.
There you go. I think we're all going to learn something today. So here we go. Time is off. Let's kick off. Henry, do you want the honour of choosing our first clue?
Well, 5 across is the first one there, and it's crestfallen 11, and I'm afraid I think I know what it is.
Of course you do, Henry. That's music to my ears. What's your guess?
Downhearted.
Nice.
That's a really strong guess.
Should we test the D?
By looking at 5 down, is that, in other words?
I was thinking the ND, of course, it starts and ends in D, because I think the down makes sense, but if we look at the last 6 down as an anagram, it's a synonym of censure, and it's an anagram of pop rivals ad, which does have a D, so I think we can put that in, and I think I know what that is too.
Yeah, I think I've seen it as well.
I definitely haven't seen it, so...
Are you asking me?
Go on, Henry.
A disapproval.
Lovely.
This could be quite a quick crossword today, people. Not because of me.
Pride goeth before the fall, as we've learned before. We've thought we were having a great start and then crashed into inevitability of defeat. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Where do we go next?
I'm going to nominate the other D at the other end, which is 5 down. Deceive 6 5, beginning with D. So, I was about to make a suggestion and now can't, because I thought I had that, but I don't think I do. No. We could move to a different down.
Well, would it be worth looking at 1 down? Because I just noticed straight away that the second letter is W, which is sort of relatively unusual. And it's drink deeply 4. I'm seeing swig.
Yep.
Well guessed. Very good.
As a Viking would.
Which does imply it is downhearted as well. It's always
Oh, I think we've
good to
confirmed
get that
downhearted.
confirmation. Yeah, deceive. I'm not seeing it. You chaps seeing it?
Well, let's give ourselves another letter before we get stuck on it, because 7 across.
Before we get downhearted. Yeah.
Exactly, before we get downhearted. Breathing space, 7 across, 4 letters ending in G. Oh, I know it. It's they're being cheeky. What's the space in your body into which you breathe?
Lung.
Yes. Well spotted, Rob. They often do this, The Guardian, Henry.
Right.
They
Now
throw
we've got
you
the
off.
U as the third letter
Yes.
of...
Deceive. D blank U blank blank blank, and then the second word is 5.
Oh, I got it.
Go on.
I believe it's double cross.
Ah, yes. I kept looking at consonants in that second letter, but double cross is an excellent guess. Okay.
So there we've given ourselves, for listeners who aren't playing along, we've got a really nice symmetrical crossword, which I think suggests where we got to go next, because we've got a very long one that goes all the way across the top, and then we have 2 very long ones that take the 2 Ds at the beginning and end of downhearted and run all the way to the bottom, giving us the first and last letter of 18 across, which is an 11-letter long word. So should we try that one just to box ourselves in, as it were?
Let's do it. The clue is slight, 11 letters. And as Rob mentioned, it begins with S and ends
I
with
think I have it.
L. Ooh. I don't have a guess for that, Henry, so please.
Superficial.
This guy's good. This guy's good.
It's my inner theatre critic. So I know Theo from our both being theatre critics. I no longer am one. One would never describe a piece of work as superficial, because that would really, you need to sort of diagnose where the superficiality is. But the word might come to mind, and I've certainly seen pieces of work described as slight.
In fact, the first piece of work we saw together, and the first time we met, I believe, I won't name the play. I think it was in quite a small pub theatre. And Henry always tells me that he heard my my laugh and thought, who's that cretin guffawing away? And I subsequently introduced myself, and we became firm friends ever since. But yeah, that was quite a heavy going evening, I seem to remember.
It was slight.
It was slight.
Slight.
Yes, to bring us neatly back to the crossword. Anyway, superficial is a lovely, lovely, lovely guess. And again, we now have our box. So we have... Yeah.
And I have a challenge this week to work slight into my conversation at some point as a euphemism for superficial. So thank you for that.
Yeah, there you go. I'll try and get one into a theatre review sometime soon.
There was a challenge. There was another theatre critic who had best remain nameless, who would say, I bet you can't get this word into your review. But then he would choose a word that you would never use in any context, let alone a review of, A Midsummer Night's Dream or a musical about carpetbaggers or something like that. There was no way you were going to get Coelacanth in. He seemed to be able to do it, but at what price?
Talking of obscure words, you'll just remind me, Henry, a few episodes ago we had a word that I know you're going to know the answer to this, but it stumped Rob and I, because the clue was... I can't remember exactly what the clue was.
Are you talking about the veneer?
I'm not... Well, that's one, the veneer. So the clue was the technique of laying veneers into wood, beginning with M. It's got a Q in there too. Marquetry.
Marquetry,
Yeah.
yes.
And the other one I was going to mention that we didn't know the meaning of was pulchritudinous.
Beautiful.
There you go. He's got it in a nanosecond. But anyway, that stumped us for at least 20 minutes of that crossword.
Oh, yeah.
So back to this one. Should we go... There's a double worder, and I always like a double worder because I just tend to find them a little more straightforward. 11 across is... The clue is appropriate, brackets appropriate someone else's idea or policy, and it's 2, 3, and the second word has a P in the middle. Appropriate someone else's idea.
So you're nicking it, aren't you?
Yeah.
I disapprove of the positioning of that P.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
It is.
You think it's something like ups or...
I think it would be helpful to get 4 down, because that will give us the second letter of the 2-letter word.
I agree.
That starts that, and that might be... So 4 down is train spotting haunts. 8.
Okay, well, that's surely stations.
So that makes that first word ends in O, which makes me think the first word... Well, I mean, then the obvious one is 2, but I don't think it is 2. I've got it.
Go on, Henry.
Co-opt, rather.
That's lovely. I would have been staring at that for a good long while. This is why we've got a ringer, people, because...
Well, no, but I mean, if I hadn't got the O, that would have really...
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good one, actually. That could have been...
I don't like the presence in it of the hyphen. I mean, this is my, being a sort of crossword neophyte. I'm not familiar with all these little graphical marks. It's a bit,
You've got to watch out for the hyphens. They scatter them around.
Of course, if it was in the New Yorker, it wouldn't be a hyphen. It would be a diaresis on the O. That's a good clue.
I think we have a controversy here.
Well,
A transatlantic controversy.
no one ever complains to The Guardian about anything. So,
No.
Well, they do, just not umlauts. Speak softly. This is 2 down.
I thought it was an instruction for the... The producer was weighing in at this point.
Yeah, come on, chaps, keep it down. Speak softly, 7 letters, second letter H.
Whisper.
Whisper.
Which makes 8 across now look like we ought to be able to get it, because it is a wise guy, US. Yeah, I've got it.
Stop being us.
Yes, I don't want to be 8 across by just saying, I know it. But I think I do.
Is it smartass?
Yeah, but of course, as a Brit, one's first thought is, I wouldn't spell it that way.
Absolutely not. That's a shameless Americanization by The Guardian.
I don't know. Would you spell it the English way ever? It seems to me that you wouldn't.
I would, actually.
Would you?
I think I would.
I think I just wouldn't use the word. I'd use another word.
Yeah. It's a good question, though.
Alec.
I definitely wouldn't say that. I might get called it.
Didn't we had Smarty Pants as a answer last week, I think, or possibly the week before.
We did have smarty pants.
But yeah, smart arse. I might say smart arse, but again, would I hyphenate it? I don't know. Possibly.
Good question.
Anyway, we're making good progress here, and we have 18.5 minutes left. So
I see a problem with 3 down, and the problem is only this. 3 down is catastrophic. 5 letters. We're not going to get given any more of the letters. We've got that the second letter and the fourth letter are A, but we can't do anything catastrophic.
yeah, we've got as much as we're going to get, so we just need to get this catastrophic.
It presumably ends with L, doesn't it? It's a.
Yeah, I got it.
Have you?
Yeah, like a catastrophic flaw of character, for instance.
Fatal.
Yeah.
That's another repetition. I think we've had that in a crossword during this series.
I think we have.
Yeah.
Do you mean to say that the AI that sets this may sometimes go back over the same ground?
How very dare you imply this is set by AI? This surely... Well, there was... You would have probably missed this controversy, Henry, but not even controversy, just talking point, that the Guardian setter changed quite recently. And I only know this because I read the comments underneath some of the crosswords.
And that's
there
the
was much
setter of this
discussion.
quick crossword, is it?
The setter of the quick crossword changed recently, and the new setter is considered to be slightly kinder than the last one. So
Right.
Actually, I shouldn't say that because they're going to start upping their game.
Yeah, they went from GPT-3 to GPT-4.
Right.
Yeah.
This is actually the little known fact that the first test of generative AI was to generate crosswords, followed by generating Sudokus. So there you go.
Here's a clue that's causing me some mirth and actually some head scratching as well. 17 across, 4 letters, and the clue is having a kink.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
The third
isn't
letter's
it?
V.
If you showed me that without my knowing what the third letter is, I would think it was bent.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but the third letter is V, and I'm sure that means the last letter is going to be Y.
Yeah, but
It's something V.
obviously it can't be
Pervy.
because that's 5.
It's wavy,
Wavy.
Oh, very nice.
but it's that kind of kink.
How
It
disappointingly
had to be
tame.
clean, the crossword, right? It couldn't be
Yeah.
kinky.
So
No.
what's a small dam then? 17 down, beginning with W, 4 letters.
As someone who's doing work on a hydropower project at present, I can tell you the answer to that question. And it is a weir.
Oh yeah. See, I think I would have thought a weir was like a small river rather than an object for stopping a river.
You'd just have thought it was the name of one of the best contemporary plays by Conor Macpherson.
Of course, recently revived in the West End to great acclaim.
Or the last name of Canada's most famous golfer. Our lone major tournament winner, Mike Weir.
That's interesting. I think of the Scottish rugby player Doddy Weir.
Guys,
Yes.
we're wasting precious seconds here naming weirs. So I'm going to drag us back to the, because we are now past the halfway point.
But
And
we're past the halfway point in the crossword.
We are past the halfway point. in the
And 9
crossword.
across, I already can see the answer. So
It's a banker.
9 across, carpet or ballet. 7. I'm confident about this, but do you want to...
Second letter L and 6th letter E. Carpet or ballet. It's not...
When you own more than one pair, you know you're middle-aged.
Okay.
Motorbikes.
Do they come in pairs?
Leather jackets.
Pairs?
Slippers.
Yeah.
Slippers. Lovely. Yeah.
I'm glad that your reaction to slipper is lovely, because speaking as someone who's a bit older than you, that's the future, my friend. Welcome.
I tell you now, Henry, that's the present for me.
Okay, I think I
love my
own
slippers.
now 3 pairs of slippers, one of which I'm allowed to go into the garden wearing when the barbecue needs attention, one of which is for upstairs only, and one of which occupies some sort of intermediate role.
Wow. That is the absolute peak of sophistication as far as I'm concerned.
It's the peak of something.
A pair of alfresco slippers. I'm going to have to get myself some. We've really moved into seriously middle-aged territory here.
Well, I'm a bit worried because I'm now looking at 10 down and it says arm and chest exercises, and my first thought is, well, I wouldn't know, but I think I do because of the letters we've already got.
Yeah, so it's a 2-worder, 5-3.
Yeah, it's not something I'm pretty confident I know what it is. It's not something I do, but I've seen it done.
It's also something that in its formulation would completely stump a North American because we don't call it this.
No, you call it 4 letters for the first word, right?
Yes, we do.
Yes. Theo, are you with us?
I'm with you. So the answer is press-ups.
Yeah.
And Rob, your formulation is push-ups.
Correct.
Which does make more sense, I have to say. It's one of those rare examples where I think your formulation...
Well, and I'd also dare to suggest that a lot more push-ups get done than press-ups. So I think, North America's probably going to win on that one.
Yeah, totally agreed.
It feels like when doing press-ups, you need to be wearing a vest, what we would call a tank top, and sort of very tight shorts and maybe some boxing boots or something like it.
There's a fancy word for exercising without weights, isn't it? Is it calisthenics or something like that?
I think you may have put an extra syllable in there. I think it may just be calisthenics, but
okay. Thanks for...
I'm not totally sure about that. It's obviously totally outside my area of expertise.
I literally only know about them because my Instagram feed is full of suggestions that I might want to try some of these.
I reckon every
exercises.
middle-aged man's
Yeah.
Instagram feed is full of suggestions about exercise regimes he might like to try. Mine is full of suggestions about some form of yoga that seems to make you very stacked without you having to do anything, which is very alluring, but I suspect a bit of a scam.
Well, surely worth a go.
Do you guys get those ones of sort of men at various ages looking way too beefy and bearded? And there's, I think the 50+ one is a man hugging a bear.
I don't think I've seen it. But...
Only for Canadian audiences, Rob.
That's...
Oh, we all aspire to hug a bear at some point in our lives here in Canada. So, you know.
That's some hyper-localised advertising you're receiving there, Rob. Anyone else see the bear hugging adverts?
Oh, I got to find this now so I don't sound like such a weirdo.
Okay, Rob, you may have revealed a little more than you intended to about your recent Google searches.
Oh, it's quite possible.
Right, we're nearly there, guys. We have 10 minutes left. I think we can afford to take our time, but as Rob said, we must guard against complacency. Let's move to 16 across, which is uneven, 8 letters, second letter O, fourth letter S. Any thoughts on that, anyone? Uneven, so...
I got it. But what? I'm really pretty confident. Shall we maybe park that and do something else just to make sure? Can we have a look at 15 down?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, does your 16 across, does it have a 6th letter of D?
It does.
So I think it's right.
Yeah, okay. So 15 down, worship, second letter D, adore.
Oh, yeah.
Which fits with what I think Rob and I are now thinking about 16 across.
See, once again, I'm left lagging behind here.
Well, no, I'm not actually. I'm cheating because I just looked at a door.
Oh, right. Okay.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, shall we do 12 down, which will just reinforce or not, as the case may be? Foolishly sentimental, 7 letters, penultimate letter, I.
Yeah.
Foolishly sentimental.
So if my word for 16 across is right, then the 4th letter of 12 down is a D.
Okay. Ooh. No, I'm not seeing that at the minute. Let's see if we can get your 16 across then.
Lopsided.
Lopsided, yeah, nice.
Definitely.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm not seeing 12 down.
Well, why don't we do 14 across, because you, both having come from the world of the arts, should find this right in your wheelhouse, which is a poetic or musical pause. It's 7 letters long. The 4th letter is an S, and the second last letter is an R.
I'm not seeing it. Poetic or musical pause.
I've just seen 13 across, even though we're not doing it. Do you want to fill that one in?
Yeah, why not?
It's scree. Find it loose on the mountainside.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. We normally give the clue first.
Yes, I realised that.
That's
The moment I did that, I thought there was a sort of a kind of cockiness about that didn't look very good. Yes,
We'll let you off.
Clue first.
We'll let you off.
First.
This does leave us with 7 minutes to get 2 answers.
Okay,
so
okay.
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Well, let's confect some drama by blathering on.
Well, hang on. This poetical musical pause, I do feel, as you said, Henry and I should have this at our fingertips.
I'm not sure about that. I think it may be quite a technical term that actually... I'm not saying we don't know it, but that's not in...
Well, Rob, you're a musician, so I'm assuming it's a word that you know from that.
Do you think you know it?
I think I do.
Can you give us a clue?
Certainly. I would love to. Let's see. It is something that a Roman emperor would have inserted in his poetry
Caesura.
or music. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Of course, I let you take that one, Henry, because
You knew it.
you're the guest.
Ooh, I see 12 down too.
I see it too.
Yeah. As soon as the A went in.
Okay.
It's the name of a college at Oxford, but not at Cambridge.
Oh God, I was in Oxford actually last weekend. So it's Magdalen.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
But not spelled like Mary.
But not spelled like the...
I mean,
college.
it is a college at Cambridge, but they don't pronounce it like that.
Is it especially Magdalen?
No, it's gorgeous.
Magdalen. I'm going to put my hands up, guys. I don't think I've come across this poetical musical pause. A
Caesura.
Caesura. Okay. And how would that be used? Tell us, Henry.
I don't know about the musical thing because I'm pretty ignorant, but it's a break in the middle of a line in poetry. And the reason I'm familiar with the word, and it's really laughable, is that years and years ago, for Latin GCSE, I was studying Virgil's Aeneid, and there was a guy in my class who was writing a commentary on it, and he said something about how there was a blurred caesura in such and such a line. And our teacher said, you've obviously nicked that. This is all pre-internet. You've nicked that from somewhere. What is a blurred caesura? And then my classmate said, I don't know. I just know it's there. Wow. And the teacher said, but the thing about a blurred caesura is it wouldn't be there. Which was just very... That's why caesura stuck in my mind. Actually, exactly what it is beyond my wit. But I know that it comes from the Latin word for to cut.
As in Caesarean?
Caesarean section.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, look, I've stopped the timer. We've got 5 minutes left. So assuming this is all correct, and we won't know for certain, of course, until we check, but assuming it is correct, that is definitely a record. So thank you, Henry.
This is good for your stats. Is that not the best thing about it?
Very good for our
stats. Are now improved.
I think you may have to come back.
Okay.
So should we do a check all, Rob?
We might as well. Are there any spellings that we're confused about?
No. Beyond, Caesura is the one that I think could have been a banana skin this week. But thanks to having your fine combined talents in the room, we have managed to step around it. So, yeah, I think I'm happy to check all, Henry.
Yes, I was just going to say I'm astonished, and I haven't looked at them, that there are 260 comments on this from readers, which I think in the world of journalism as it exists now is the definition of a successful item. But what do the comments say? I don't intend to find out.
Most of them will be passing comment on certain clues, on the
saying
general
that they were
quality
bad
of the
clues or unfair.
Yeah,
or who
they'll
knows
say,
what a caesura is? Well, I don't, but I know that it's right.
Yeah, there'll be people that will definitely be questioning particulars of the clues.
There's some good ones, actually. One person wrote, I get the ballet, but why the carpet?
Yeah, I mean, carpet slipper is a thing. I think that's fair.
Isn't the answer something like the room would be cold without it?
There was so I watched Chitty Chitty Bang Bang last night, and before we came on air, Henry was asking me what breed of dog Zeus is, who is once again lying loyally by my side. And he said, is he a Shih Tzu? And I said, yes, but don't call me Sue. Now, that is a joke lifted directly from the book of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang the musical, which tickled me somewhat. How did I get onto that, Rob?
I don't know. It's the old airplane joke, you know. Surely you can't be serious.
I'm not Shirley. How does that go? Roughly like that.
I am, but don't call me Shirley.
Is that Leslie Neilsen who says that?
It is indeed. That's his stock gag throughout the entire movie.
Is it really? I probably ought to revisit those films. I mean, I saw them when I was 8 or something, or 9. Have they stood the test of time?
Airplane 1 definitely has.
Has it?
Yeah. I watched it with my kids, probably ill-advised, given that my youngest, I think, was 7 or something when we watched it, but it definitely stands up.
There's a great clip of Leslie Neilsen in an interview. I can't remember who the host is, but he basically has this little fart machine on him, and he just keeps firing it off. And it really shouldn't be funny, but in Leslie Nielsen's hands, quite literally, this thing just becomes...
It doesn't sound funny, I have to tell you.
No, he says, I take this with me everywhere because it always guarantees... Except... And anyway, look it up on YouTube. It is well worth a look. He's probably the sort of man that was a great joker in public and intensely complicated behind the scenes. But
my first question about people like that is always, how many times was he married? And I don't know the answer, but I had actually not appreciated that he was Canadian.
He was the pride of Canada, yeah. He was. Yeah, I believe he's passed away. I mean, he's the kind of guy that got gray hair when he was 14, right? So he's of indeterminate age.
No, I think we can safely
Born
assume.
1926, died 2010. Married a mere 4 times. That seems pretty conservative by the standards
It's slightly lower than I would have imagined. In the end, they just all got fed up with the fart machine. They just couldn't take it anymore. Leslie, get a new joke.
So where was Priscilla Presley in that? Was she second, third?
She is not in that list, but they did have a relationship. Is that right?
Did they really? No, they were.
No, I don't know.
They were fictionally in love in Naked Gun.
Oh, right. Yes, of course. That's where I get that idea from.
Where they wear the full body condoms in order to have safe sex.
Right.
Rob, you're a goldmine of Leslie Nielsen.
This is the Canadian national myth that he's sharing with us.
It was required watching, you know. We in elementary school, we had to study the works of Leslie Neilsen, obviously.
I didn't anticipate that with Henry on the podcast, our major topic of conversation would be the life and humour of Leslie Nielsen. But hey, this is the joy of Two Across. You never know where it's going.
It's interesting. I mean, but both his parents were born in other countries. How about that?
Oh.
His father was Danish and his mother was Welsh.
Wow.
Right.
Like
Welsh.
all Canadians.
Interesting.
Yes. True.
Gosh, it's often people in showbiz do come from a mix of cultures. I think there's something in that cross-fertilization of, I mean, Danish and Welsh. How can you not be a comedian? You know, there's a rich seam of material on both sides there. And obviously that explains the Nielsen.
It does. I started to think about the greatest Canadian actors. I'm afraid I thought of Ryan Gosling.
Oh, yeah. Matthew Perry.
Lorne Greene.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Oh, Carrey, yeah.
But number one is, I think we can all agree, head and shoulders above the rest, is just a natural thespian, William Shatner.
I thought you were going to say Keanu Reeves, actually.
Well, he's second.
And there are statues to all of them a mere few minutes from Rob's house.
Well, there's a building, the old Student Union building at McGill where I did my undergrad, was the Shatner building, and I think it still is the Shatner building. And the famous story is, because William Shatner's from Montreal originally, that he did not come to the inauguration of his own building. He just didn't show up.
That speaks volumes about the character of William Shatner. I mean, he can't have that many buildings named after him, can he?
Be careful, he's still alive.
Okay. Great bloke. Absolutely great bloke. So, look, we still haven't checked all on our crosswords, so we don't know for certain that we are now 11:10 up. So I'm going to do that right now. Are we ready?
Yeah.
And check all. We are correct. We always play a little fanfare when we have won the crossword.
Are you going to edit that in, or are you going to play it live?
No. Rob
on the fart machine.
Rob gets his guitar out, and maybe that's a thing we could take into the next episode. Live jingles.
Well, I was thinking about that, like get those little kind of horns that clowns have that make noise. You know, we can have our own sort of live sound effects. Go back to the golden age of radio.
Foley sound effects.
Yeah.
On Two Across. Maybe we'll save that for season 2.
But bonus features.
Yeah. Henry, tell us a question I've never really asked you before, despite having multiple opportunities. Is where did your sort of love of language and literature originate? When did it start?
I'm not sure the two are that closely related. I mean, that may seem a rather strange thing to say, but they developed in different ways. I think literature, because I just grew up in a house full of books. My parents were big readers. I'm an only child. And I thought that was the fart machine. It was your dog.
I should have mentioned in advance that Zeus might do that.
Yes, and I think only children, there's a little bit more pressure to create your own fun, and you explore. I was a sort of library gannet, plucking things down off the shelves. Language, I'm not sure I have an answer to that that's truthful. There are lots of glib things that I could say about it, but I think it actually really kicked in when I became interested in Samuel Johnson, Dr. Johnson. I'm not sure that I could necessarily explain why I became interested in him, but I was astonished at the idea of one person, not quite single-handed, but almost single-handed, creating not the first dictionary of English, but the first really good dictionary of English. I became fascinated with him, I became fascinated with his dictionary, and that led to sort of spreading out into other areas of linguistic curiosity and investigation. But there are other stories I could tell which are, plausible, although probably not actually true, about the household that I lived in and my parents' linguistic interests and that kind of thing. My mother was an amazingly polyglot person who spoke half a dozen languages and was very keen to instill an enthusiasm for language in me. I'm not sure that she was successful, but it'd be nice to pay tribute to her anyway.
There you go. And for those of us whose knowledge of Dr. Johnson is mainly based on Blackadder...
Does his dictionary contain the word sausage? It does. It does.
Okay,
it does.
Good.
He knew the word sausage, but it does not contain the word contrafibularities.
Gosh. There's a fact of the day. Do you have a favourite aphorism of his as well? Because I know the one about London gets repeated so often.
Yeah.
Is it true? Did he say that about London?
He
or was that a
certainly
myth?
did. When a man is tired of London, he's tired of life. I think that's a terrible aphorism. First of all, I don't think it's true. And secondly, it's, I think, unrepresentative of Johnson's take on the world. It's annoying. I always feel when one knows quite a lot about something, people expect you to have a sort of really brilliant answer to that kind of question. It's a bit like when you're a theatre critic and people say, what should I go and see? And you think, oh no, what is there that's on at the moment? You should have an answer, but you don't. I know lots of Johnson quotes. I don't have a favourite one, but I love a lot of his dictionary definitions, many of which are pretty workmanlike and some of which are wrong. But for some reason, the one that always sticks with me, he came up with very succinct definitions for often quite complicated concepts, and he defines embryo as the offspring yet unfinished in the womb. And I just absolutely love that. I think that's beautiful.
Wow. It's interesting actually on that subject. Just occasionally, I don't know why my brain does this, but sometimes when I'm in a state of almost semi-trance, like for example on a long road trip and I'm driving, I'll sometimes play a game of trying to come up with dictionary definitions myself, just to see if I can do it. And it's unbelievably difficult to do without using the word that you're referencing. So the fact, obviously, he did that for the entire English language is just astonishing to me.
And some of his definitions are really inadequate, but a lot of them are remarkably good. There's a very famous definition of door in, I think it's Webster's Third Dictionary, which unfortunately I don't have at my fingertips, but it is literally a situation where by the time you've read the definition, you think, I actually now don't know what a door is. I knew when I started, but now I'm a lot less confident about it. I don't think I can pull it up online at the drop of a hat, but I have actually found it, although I don't think this is the whole thing. It says door, a movable piece of firm material or a structure supported usually along one side and swinging on pivots or hinges, sliding along a groove, rolling up and down, revolving as one of four leaves, or folding like an accordion, by means of which an opening may be closed or kept open for passage into or out of a building, room, or other covered enclosure, or a car, airplane, elevator, or other vehicle.
Wow. Yeah, it's one of those where you should just, what they should have written is, one of those.
Yes.
And move on.
I do quite like you do get facetious definitions sometimes. Samuel Johnson didn't have many, but there's a famous one. I think it's from Chambers' dictionary of éclair, which is a cake, long in form but short in duration.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, that's great. And thank you again for raising the tone of Two Across, because although in some ways, I suppose, a podcast dedicated to wordplay, we often fail magnificently to actually provide the requisite background knowledge on the words that we use.
It's true as you think of door. Just sort of, I can't get it, but this is fascinating me, that as you try to do it in your head and come up with something simpler, you can't help but embellish little parts of it. You could say like a thing that blocks a hole moving from some place to another one that can either be open or closed. But then you start to, okay, but it's not necessarily in and out of something. It could simply be sort of in an open space. I'm thinking of a classic Star Trek episode where that was the case. So it gets awfully complicated as you start to try to describe what a door is.
So the challenge I think lexicographers always face is that there is this constant battle between being comprehensive and being succinct. Samuel Johnson went for succinctness on the whole. Webster's third was famous for trying to be comprehensive. I found their definition of hotel, which I will just share with you, although
Please do.
It may exceed the boundaries that you're prepared to tolerate. A building of many rooms, chiefly for overnight accommodation of transients, and several floors served by elevators, usually with a large open street-level lobby containing easy chairs with a variety of compartments for eating, drinking, dancing, exhibitions, and group meetings, as of salesmen or convention attendants, with shops having both inside and street-side entrances and offering for sale items as clothes, gifts, candy, theatre tickets, travel tickets of particular interest to a traveller, or providing personal services as hairdressing, shoe shining, and with telephone booths, writing tables, and washrooms freely available.
Blimey.
And again, what is it a definition of again?
So
Yeah.
he could, I suppose it's the art of brevity, but in some cases that slips into total verbosity.
Well, the hardest words to define are the ones that everyone already knows the definition of. You don't look up the verb to take because you don't know what it means. You know, you want to sort of trace something about its history or different significations. Caesura, we could provide probably a very short definition of, but some of the other words we had today would be a struggle. That again is one of the challenges of lexicography. These things where people aren't really looking for the meaning, they're looking to understand something about the word's history, are the ones that actually pose the biggest challenge for the definer.
Do you think this is a subject that I talk about to the children quite a lot, is what I often call the Americanization of the language, the way that certain words have just slipped into our everyday vocabulary that when I was growing up just simply weren't there at all. An example I use a lot to the kids, just because they say it all the time, it's when the kids say, that's super cool, or that's super good, or super whatever, as a replacement for very. And I just don't know what point that just became completely ubiquitous in our speech, but it does change. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it does change.
Well, it does. I mean, I think British people feel very proprietorial about the English language, but the reality is there are, 65 million people in Britain, about 350 million in the United States. Far more of the world's English speakers are second language speakers anyway, all over the world. British people don't own English, although they act as though they do. And the idea that our language is being encroached upon by other people's usage is, I'm afraid, a bit delusional. And actually, the centre of gravity has moved, and one shouldn't be affronted by this. It's still interesting to see if one can pinpoint the moment where these things tip over. But if you think about popular culture and how much of the popular culture that your children consume is either American in origin or comes from somewhere completely other, but has then been sort of filtered perhaps through an American media company, it's not surprising that what you might regard as an American usage is something that they've just been presented with from day one.
Disappointingly on the side of my children there, Henry, but
I know what's good for me. The future belongs to them.
No, it's true. And yeah, it's such an interesting and massive subject, language, but it's strange how it always surprises you. And so I love coming across a word I've never used before. And actually one great thing about doing this podcast is that we do stumble across these words, marquetry and pulchritudinous being the two examples that I used from a few weeks ago.
You could get them into one sentence, to be honest, if you went to a sort of French polishing convention, Your pulchritudinous marquetry.
It's very true. I will make that an aim. Maybe I should try and get that into a review at some point. Difficult to see how that would come up, but you never know. We always ask at the end of the show what's on the sort of agenda for our respective weeks. Rob, you go first. What have you got coming up?
I don't think a whole lot. Which suits me to a T, to be honest. It's been, I think, as listeners have heard, a lot of moving about for the last while, so I'm just going to not move anywhere. This weekend, the kids have a disc golf tournament, so we're heading down to near the U.S. border to watch my 3 kids throw frisbees in a tournament against other children. My daughter is going to make her debut in the adult female division, so that's very exciting. And I think that is about that. And that just suits me great. Right now, we're in the midst of a late May heat wave. So 30 degrees today, 30 degrees yesterday, thunder showers. It's sweltery and lovely. So I'm just going to sort of enjoy that.
Nice. And good luck to all three of them in their disc golf tournament. Henry, I should explain a reason Rob and I became friends in the first place was during lockdown. Rob was a neighbour of mine and we decided to head out into the local park and throw some discs at trees, mainly as an excuse to get out of the house. And this led to a continuing interest in the pursuit of disc golf, which I don't know if you've ever played, but...
I should say that the whole theme of our throwing discs in Brockwell Park was that we would make our way across the park and then we would go to Canopy Beer Company, which existed at the time, get 2 cans, and then sort of work our way back with those cans of beer. So it was really a pretext for 2 people to drink pints of beer as they were walking through the park and not at home doing their fatherly duty.
Halcyon days. So yeah, that's just a bit of background on that.
I can't compete with any of that. I'm sorry. I mean, you said to me what's on the horizon for me. My daughter's gone to school today. They're having what they call a dino day, where everyone has to be a dinosaur, and I'll be picking her up later. And I'm pretty curious to see what all the kids look like in their dinosaur outfits. We rather half-assed it in that she's wearing a T-shirt with a picture of a dinosaur on it, and in her pocket she has a revolting little egg where when you squeeze it, a very ugly dinosaur pops over the edge and terrifies you. But there's been no effort to make her look like a Stegosaurus.
That sounds like a perfect dinosaur day costume to me. Minimal effort and maximum effect.
And you have to think there are any number of Stegosauri at the school because it's the most obvious thing to make someone look dinosaur-like, put a bunch of large bony scales on their back.
Yes, very true. My son is an absolute dinosaur fanatic and has his very own clip-on tail for when the mood takes.
I was a bit worried by one of the parents in my daughter's class who in the obligatory WhatsApp group said that she would dress her son as a caveman. I'm thinking, should I be the person to point out that dinosaurs and humans did not exist at the same time? Or would that just be making me a bit of a, as the crossword led us to think, smart ass?
That is always a dilemma in the parenting WhatsApp group. So I've got half term coming up, as have you, Henry, next week. So we're going to be heading off to Devon on Saturday for a week away, and a bit like you, Rob, I'm looking forward to a bit of downtime because it's been quite a busy few weeks. I think it's that thing in May where people kind of emerge from hibernation and start wanting to schedule things and do various events, and there's school stuff and kids stuff, and it before you know where you are, every evening of the week has been accounted for. So I'm looking forward to going to Devon and just sort of shutting off from the world for a week or so. But anyway, we'll see if that endeavour is successful. And how about you, Henry? Any big half-term plans?
Not really, no. I'm not going to any far-flung places. I'm not participating in any strange sports.
Oh, shame.
Not broadening my horizons.
If you ever want to play disc golf, there's a very good course in Croydon, which is...
It's going to take more than that to get me to Croydon, Theo, but thanks. No, actually, Croydon is unfairly maligned.
It is harsh. I'll consider that a maybe, Henry. I'll see if I can coax you out.
What's
maybe
wrong with
next
this
time
golf
Rob's
in
over.
Brockwell Park?
Well, it's fine, but, a lot of pedestrians and dogs and all the rest of it, and crucially not specific disc golf baskets, which once you get to a certain level...
Are you saying there are no people in Croydon?
The park that it's played in Croydon is...
It's not like waking up and it's 28 days later and,
Maybe in February it's like that, but yeah, generally in this time of year we have to be quite careful that we're not going to kind of take out the dog walker. But anyway, yeah, maybe next time Rob's over we'll tempt you out for a few beers and a throw. But anyway,
and a quick crossword.
On which note, thanks again for your valuable MVP contributions today, Henry. Before we go, if people wanted to find out a bit more about your work and your books and you generally, where should they look?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's quite retro, which is in itself intriguing. henryhitchings.com. I guess the key thing to say there is people, when they hear my surname, think, is he something to do with Christopher Hitchens? I am not. It's INGS at the end.
There you go. So Rob, over to you, I think, for the sign-off.
So you've been listening to Two Across, an original podcast by Theo Bosanquet and Rob Cole. Thank you very much to Henry Hitchings for being here and helping push us over the edge. If you like what you've been listening to, we would invite you to like, subscribe on whatever platform you happen to be listening to, and share it with a friend. And if you want to reach out and get in touch, twoacrosspod@gmail.com or @twoacrosspod on the platform formerly known as Twitter. Have a good week.